Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. How is everyone today?
Good.
Good. Ah, boy, these are exhausting times, aren't they?
Yeah.
I know it's hard to move forward with life where it just gets more dramatic and more complex and more emotional and everything that you think of. It's the world's upside down. Listen, we've only known each other for a few days, really, but I think by now a bunch of you are. Hang on one second. Guys, I'm sorry. I got just a slightly urgent email. There we go. Sorry. All right, I got rid of that. So again, as I was saying yesterday, and really, my arguments are being put to the test. Really, like, how do you deal with times like this? And as a creative and as a creative teacher, in a class like this, I that's the center of my own belief system, creativity itself. You know, you sit at a table with people, you're talking about the events right now, you're talking about uh, the violence in the police department, and you're talking about the protests, and then you start talking about the violence in the protests, and we spin out, we spin out, we spin out, and because it's all horrifying. There's a couple things I want to say quickly before we just jump in. One thing I just want to say is, on the one hand, you prioritize those events so that they don't confuse you, you know, because they're separate things, really. There is police violence, right? And by the way, I'm not talking about all police. I'm talking about the police who commit the violence, and that they get away with it. Then you get protests, and then you get violence at the protests. We could agree on elements of any of those three, right? And not with the other two. I think we all feel very strongly that the police have got to, figure this out. They've got to do what they're here for. They have to only protect people. It's their only job, period. Protect everyone, right? Most of us believe in protest, right? Most of us don't believe in protest. But then when it gets to violent protest, people have different feelings, and one could make time to discuss that, openly. I'm a peacenik. I lean on that side. I do understand human frustration. It's not up to me whether to forgive or not forgive anybody. It's a complex situation. I want to get back to the source. I feel that way about everything we've been through as a culture. Find the source first. Don't get confused by every kind of spinoff. So one thing I just want to say about, being creative in a time that seems so openly destructive, it itself is an activist decision. I will remain creative. And you could see that however you mean. I know a couple people who do a drawing a day, and that's their version of creative. I know other people, creative is just keeping your heart open. Let's say you're walking down the street, you got your mask, you see a neighbor. Do you smile with your eyes? Have you learned to smile with your eyes yet? It's a creative act. We better learn how to do that. I always believed in eye contact, and now that we wear masks, I believe in it twice as much. Creative act. If the policemen who took the knee, have all seen some of that, the ones who bent down and joined the protesters, that's a creative act. It's a daring creative act. Their subculture has been telling them not to do that. And these guys are like, no. You're not going to redefine that. It's a beautiful thing. I'm going to do it. I'm going to talk about solidarity, people to people. So I find, frankly, that being creative, whether it's making websites or drawing or painting or singing when you're in the shower, whatever it is, reminds you that that's a choice humans make. Look, just for a minute, if we were going to oversimplify, creative, neutral, destructive. Is there another choice in life? You're either creative, you're neutral, or you're destructive. And by the way, just try to say neutral. I mean, now you can't because, we've finally given up on even trying it. But you really just ever try. How long can you sit on a fence before you have to go to one side or the other? So which side do you want to be on, ultimately? How do you want to change the world? What's the world you imagine for real? Is it really like, picking a new enemy? It's like, my kind was hurt by this specific kind, so I'm going to go to their country and mess them up, What? It just sounds stupid, doesn't it? So listen, I know we're all going to have different ways of dealing with this, and I'm not going to continue preaching at you. But I do believe that by being creative, one keeps those doors open, and by not being creative, you fall into this place where you pass through neutrality. I don't give a damn neutrality, and that's kind of like existential neutrality. Like, oh, it all happens without me, so I'm not going to bother with an opinion. And then the frustration, you know. Have any of you seen the movie Do the Right Thing? So, you know, I better avoid any spoilers. But at the end of the movie, you know, a very frustrated character makes a very frustrated decision, and you don't know what to do with it. What do you do when someone walks down the street and hits every car with a bat? And they say this because the police are unfair. I don't understand exactly who do they think owns the cars? You know, and you know, you can make the argument that they have to do that to get attention, and I don't know. But I have to say it's a little hard for me to bear because I'd never hit my neighbor's car with a bat. So anyway, you be creative. And by the way, if you're liking web design, pretty soon, you know, that's another way to speak. You know, a lot of you guys, I don't know if any of you tweet. I used to tweet. I used to tweet under this name, Straight White Men for Diversity. And I was always talking about different causes and backing
That's
people.
a good one.
Straight white men for diversity. Because for a little while I was the enemy, you know, because I happened to be a straight white man. You know, other people are like, oh, well, your history is such and such, so you get a pass. I don't want to pass. I just want to be another person. But I do care about diversity. I love diversity. It's why I teach here. If I didn't like diversity, I'd go find some place where everybody has my background and I'd stay there. But I like diversity. So I want to champion diversity. By the way, I want to say to everybody in here, you all matter to me. My Black student, yes, Black Lives Matter, really. And if I had the time, I'd list every kind we could name in here and tell you that you matter in case you think I don't believe that. Whether you care, you know, we should care that each other cares. I care, and a lot of you seem to care, so I love being here. All right, let me stop. But please, in the meantime, if you tweet, you know, tweet something useful. Make sure your heart helps you decide before you type. You know, use your mind, use your anger if you have to, but make sure your heart has a vote. You know, tweet, Facebook, Instagram. You know, a lot of people on Instagram, I myself included, have been paid. We're just black boxes today. You know, just black boxes. And again, I hope any African Americans hear what I'm saying from the heart. I don't want to be overstep my bounds. But black boxes with Black Lives Matter as the hashtag. They're everywhere. Search that hashtag later today. You'll see a field of black boxes. There's a lot of ways to just shout nowadays. At the very least, we do have to shout. This has got to end. All right, folks, use your skills in my class. So listen, today, we're going back to web design. We're doing it a little bit more intelligently. We got some practice and we're going to upgrade a little. I also want to bring in photos. And then if you go to the next level with media, whether you're making websites for fun, or whether you want to talk politics, or whether you want to, you know, help people move forward through the web, you're going to need words and pictures, right? At the very least, right? We like video a lot lately, right? We're really dependent on video these days to help move justice along. Thank God for that, right? But every animation, the rest of it. So web design is a great forum. Today, I want to do more with text, do more with style, but I want to bring in our first photos. And these photos have been prepared for us, but I want to screen share so I could get to what you need to move ahead with me. So listen, forgive me if I went too far talking about the elephant in the room, but we are all in a moment of history. 2020 is a staggeringly historical year that people are going to be talking about for a very long time. And here we are. So we're bringing it back. Photos are necessary. You know, our culture, the way we think, it's imagery and voice typically, right? Now we've moved from seeing, listening to seeing, reading, and that's where we're going to start. So we have to bring the pictures. But I do want to open up screen sharing because I do have to talk about a tool. So let me, by the way, I want to repeat this. If you have to screen share today, remember to be sure, click desktop at the next option. Don't click Google Chrome or anything like that. I can't show you, unfortunately. You'll have to trust me on that. All right, let's take a look. I've been doing this every day using the handout as a way to ground us. And we're already here, so I'm skipping that. I want to say a quick word about computers. Boy, it's really proven difficult for me to get computers for anyone who needs it. I can't take class time anymore to discuss it. If you're still in need, could you be sure to let me know today? Some of you made decisions of your own, good decisions, getting computers, and I want to tell the school not to get you computers because someone else needs it. So please let me know later today if you still need one, or if then I'll keep you on the list. Otherwise, I guess I'll assume that you're off the list. I'm pretty sure this group, everybody's fended for themselves. All right, could everybody look at this though? This we haven't done yet. So I talked about it yesterday, but today you have to take action. Adobe's a company, they own most of graphic design programs. And they take a bunch of the most popular and they call it the Creative Cloud Suite. We all know what Photoshop is. But if you worked in a magazine, you'd need InDesign. I know at least one of you guys use InDesign. It's from magazines, newspapers, books. You'd need Photoshop for the photos, and then you'd use InDesign to lay out your magazine. If you had illustrations, somebody would be using Adobe Illustrator probably. By the way, the three things I just mentioned, they're all in the Creative Cloud Suite. So Adobe may sell 30 programs, but I guess about half of them, the most popular ones, are in the Creative Cloud Suite. This is the original handout from the school. Now, if you check your email today, and I know it's early, but if you check your BMCC email, Christopher Stein sent you an email by sheer coincidence about Adobe's Creative Cloud Suite just today. So he has simple instructions in that email, which are my favorite so far. If I'd seen them yesterday, I might have put them in my own handout. So this is what happens. You follow this link, unless you're going to do it his way from his email that he sent you, Christopher Stein, head of the department. You could follow this link. It's going to tell you how to get into Adobe and get the Creative Cloud Suite. It's from the Creative Cloud Suite that we're going to need Photoshop. And I got to tell you frankly, we're using Photoshop first, but we need two other programs. Once you've got the suite running on your computer, I'm not worried about the others. It'll take me minutes to tell you how to get the programs. So first, try to get the Creative Cloud Suite. Now, I don't want to confuse you, but it'd be nice for you to see whether that automatically installed this thing called the Creative Cloud app. I want to see if I could open it for you. I could swear I had it out. Give me a second. You're all looking on my screen. I'm going to do a quick search. Creative Cloud. And I'm just going to see what comes up. And I want to search my applications folder because I'm pretty sure that's where I put it. So this is going to be a little hard. It's actually Adobe Creative Cloud. There we go. I want to show you what happens if I run this thing. I used to have a shortcut up here, so I'm not quite sure what happened. So what I'm asking people to do, if you haven't already, some of you probably did, is get your free subscription. It's a subscription to Creative Cloud. This is taking a little bit long. My internet connection's pretty good, so I may not be able to wait. But what's going to happen is you'll see Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Premiere, which we're going to use later, Adobe Animate. They're all going to be just lining up. And you could click load to load one. You could just load Photoshop today. I apologize this is taking this long. I'm a little disturbed by that. But we don't have time to wait. Folks, I want to ask you quickly, by either a show of hands or emojis, however you want to do it, how many of you already did this? You know, you already have Creative Cloud.
Yep.
Bunch of people. Was it easy?
Yeah.
Great. All right, so I'm going to be quiet now. I want to say something.
InDesign and Illustrator, from my understanding, have a lot of RAM and will take a long time to load.
Photoshop too. You know, so I got to say something about all that. You don't feel like you got to load them all at once. You know, like we need Photoshop right away by tomorrow. So load that. And then if you're really hungry for any of the others on your own curiosity, load that one next. You know, I'll tell you program by program when we need it. They're awesome. All right, so listen, I gotta just say one last thing before we move on because we have a lot to do that's a little more hands-on and more fun. My job has never been to help people load software or to get computers. Right? You know, like this has nothing to do with anything I've ever done. You know, I started teaching at 18 years old, so it's been a damn long time. And so I have no idea what your computer looks like at home or much about Windows for that matter. So I'm trying to be encouraging. Folks, if you need to, you look stuff up. How do I in Google and get your answers, all right? So I'm gonna move forward. I'm gonna get back to the handout for a minute. I do wanna say though, if you are having trouble, I found this text very helpful. It goes into some detail about how Creative Cloud works and how it dishes up the programs. This video here is once you've got Creative Cloud running, it just sort of helps you a little bit more to how to use that app I was trying to load for you a couple minutes ago. You don't have to watch these if you already have Photoshop lined up. You know, so for the last time, I want to mention that, yeah, somebody looking for me, somebody want to comment? No? All right. By now, I think everybody knows where the videos are. So I'm just including that just to remind you guys. Some folks are taking this class primarily through video. It's pretty interesting. You know, sometimes you want to look stuff up even though you're here in person. I want to tell you what we're going to do now. This is different, right? So I just want to say something. It does connect with these first steps, though. The first thing we've done for the last few days, every day except day one, right? So we made a folder. And I made this argument that every day that you make a website, a new website, always needs an independent folder. I keep saying that. But today, I'm supplying the folder. So this is going to take a couple of minutes. Now, some of you may have already done this. And if you have, again, please be patient. I want to back up and I want to show you something. On the handout, it says, look here. You're going to be seeing this a lot the next week, at least, if not longer. Look here. Next, get today's assets. You got two ways to do this. I could click this right now, right? But I just want to double check. Did I do it? I usually put it here also, but I didn't do that today. All right, I'll show you tomorrow. So to get the assets, make sure you're looking at the handout unless you've done this already. And this is where it's going to change depending on what kind of computer you're on. You see this here? I'm clicking this link. When I click this, an arrow just showed up in the bottom left of the browser. Now, I'm pretty sure that much is going to work the same on Macs and Windows. I want to say something that also may work on both, but definitely works on a Mac. Can everybody have a look at this? To get this, I could click this little arrow here and say Show in Finder. But what I'd rather do is click right on the name, and I want to show you why. If I click right on the name, it's called Class5-Assets.zip. It did a couple things for me all at once that I want to point out. So one, let me just change something here so it's easier to see. One, it got Class5-Assets, which was in my downloads. Remember, I just downloaded it. .zip, for anyone who hasn't seen it, is a common way for people to send folders to each other. See, websites, you can't send, oh, these are my 5 separate pages, and here are my photos, and think it's going to be a website. You have to send that whole folder, but you often can't. So what people do is they compress it. Most Mac people make zips.zip, and at some point I'll show you how to do it. Some people on Windows make rar.rar, and it's similar. But then what you typically do is you have to unzip it, and then it gets this name. The process that I just showed you took you to downloads immediately and unzipped it, which means turned it into a folder. Now, if you're seeing something called Class5-Assets, that's the folder we're going to use today. Now, I want to say one more thing. I don't like using it in downloads. I'm going to delete everything in downloads regularly. Downloads is not for storage. It's like a mailbox. You don't leave your mail in the mailbox, right? Now, you could do that. I won't stop you, but I don't think it's a good idea. So this is what I prefer you do, right? Once you see the folder, because we don't care about the zip, you just unzipped it. I want you to put it on the desktop. So I could drag it here because my desktop's on the sidebar, or I could physically see this little space on my desktop and drag it there. I want you to get yours to the desktop. Now I do want to say something to you. If that's confusing, you could leave it in downloads, but I want to make sure it's somewhere where you could use it all day today. So listen, guys, those of you who are computer experts, I really thank you for being patient. You know, not everybody is, right? So all I want to say is we've unzipped today's assets. I want to say something very professional to everybody in here. When you're working on large-scale projects, regardless of your major, people are going to send assets to you. So assets, in plain English, means the parts. So if you're a video student in this room, you're not going to be making videos alone. The teams make those things. So someone might send you photos, that's assets. Someone might send you the script even. It's more assets. You got to know what to do with assets when you get them at home, especially in the pandemic moment. But frankly, this is the way we do things nowadays. I know a band who I love, they never see each other. They never play it. They never see each other physically. They send the music files back and forth and add their parts. It's crazy. And they won awards. So anyway, you're going to get repeated assets. Does everyone know where their folder is? So mine's on the desktop. You go to wherever your folder is. I'm going to neaten up a little bit. I don't need downloads because I moved my folder out. And I got other junk around, so I'm cleaning up. I want to open the folder. So guys, I want to say something about today's folder. Later, if you want, you could rename it if you want. And you could drag it into a bigger folder where you keep stuff if you want. Right now, let's keep it simple and just leave it there. Do you notice how there's an HTML file in there already? Index.html. And there's also 3 JPEGs. I'm on a Mac, and I'm not sure if Windows can do this or not. If I click a JPEG and I hit my space bar, and if it works in Windows, let me know. It's giving me a preview. No? So if you know how to preview images on your side, you could do it, or you could just watch. It's up to you. So I just previewed it with the space bar. Space bar also puts it away. I can do this with movies and animations and music. So here it is. I'm going to click the down arrow quickly to show you the other one. And the next, so they're all music, right? You can see I got this music plan going. I got a drummer, I got a guitar player, and I got a microphone standing for the vocalist right now. So we're going to do a music groove. So I'm going to put that away. We're almost ready for these. What I do need to do is get index in Sublime. So let's stop for 1 minute. Let's imagine you're working on someone else's website. You know, the web designer quit, right? They got you the folder and now you're the web designer. First thing you do is open the folder and analyze it, right? So we want to do a couple things. First, you get that code open in Sublime. So I'm going to ask you to open Sublime, however you're used to doing that. Since we've been doing that for days, I think people got kind of used to it. My version of Sublime, because I haven't bothered to update it, keeps opening everything recent. I'm going to clean up because we had a lot of pages yesterday. This is all yesterday's stuff. So no. Now, I'm still in Sublime, and I know that if you look at the menus on top, and I see Sublime. If I click in Chrome, it's going to say Chrome, different menus. If I click on the desktop, again, it says Finder on a Mac, right? Different menus. So I got to make sure I'm still in Sublime in my case and ask for a new document if I don't have one. So if you don't have a new one, do File menu, New File. I want to say something quickly. There are other ways. Like if you're thinking, Ira, couldn't I do File menu, Open, and get the index page? Yes. I'm just going to make it simple. Do you know how we've been dragging pages into the browser? You could also drag them into Sublime. So I want you to do both. So I want you to drag index into Sublime, get yourself an open tab in your browser, drag the same page in there. So I want to point out something.
Professor?
Yes.
I've got hex code in my Sublime.
On your index.html page?
Yeah.
That you just downloaded from the assets?
Yes.
Yours does not look like this?
Not at all.
How odd.
I think it's a wording error. I don't know what's going on. I have extra. I have.
Can you close it?
Sure.
Close it. Let's try it a different way. Can I ask you, when you look in your folder, does it have a browser icon?
Yeah.
So it looks like a browser file. That's odd. You want to go to Sublime and try File menu, Open, and see if it opens differently?
Sure. Let me see if I can open it in Chrome as well.
I just did that step and I got a bunch of hex code too, or a bunch of something.
Professor, your Mac doesn't. Your Mac files don't work on our Windows very well.
I've been using this same file for years. And all my students,
Uh-huh.
literally several thousand students. So I don't know what went on today. So this is what we're going to have to do, folks. For today, it's not going to be a disaster. Not at all. Could you just, I'll give everyone a couple of minutes. Open a blank, blank page and type this. Now, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to talk a little bit. I'm not going to say anything new. While those of you who need to type it, type it. I want to say a couple quick words. One, today I wanted to talk about using a dummy so you don't have to type this every time, right? We learned this on the first day, right? So you might have to make a dummy of your own. Why today this file that I've used a million times is not behaving for some of you? I'm going to have to look at. I don't know. It could be the newest of the newest operating systems. I'm in Catalina right now, which I've only had for a short while on the Mac. Could have to do with that. Maybe I better update this version of Sublime. It's messing with me. Maybe the zip got corrupt, which is highly suspect. Hey, I want to ask you guys a question just to be sure of something. Anybody out there have a Mac? Lorenzo, is the file working? Marissa, is it working for you?
Yes, it is working. It opened just fine.
Just fine. I want to ask other Windows people. Anybody on Windows, does anyone have it working, or are you all seeing funky?
No, I saw the hex code.
Really? Philippe,
Okay.
you're on Windows and it's working for you? Just so we could all learn something about this, because this is part of day-to-day life in the modern world.
Professor, it's
Yes.
working for me. Like I have Windows, so it's working for me.
So there's more to this, right?
Yeah.
So we can't blame the operating systems necessarily. Of course, if we look, guys, we're not in tech support here, right? So let me bring that code out where everyone could see it again. And I want to just say a couple quick words though. If I was in tech support, I'd have to study the hell out of this because this is a new problem, right? And it happened only to a small fraction of the class, but enough people to be a problem if we were at a newspaper right now and we had to get the jobs done and we're sending files back and forth to each other. Let's hope that the photos behave, All right. So everybody who didn't get a working file, did you make your own? I'd like you to save yours as index.html into today's folder. So make sure you're saving it with the right name. Right, so we're talking about index.html. If mine is already in there, it's probably going to say replace. There's already a file there. You say, yeah, go ahead, replace it. Are we all good now? Does everybody have something?
Yep.
I just made a new folder and a new document. Is that okay?
Not really, unless you're going to move the photos into your folder. I want the same folder because we need those photos in there. You see, that's why I prepared a folder that was ready to go. I didn't expect this confusion. But you know something? The only thing I expect now is more confusion. Because like I said, with the world standing on its head, nothing surprises me anymore. The photos have to share the folder. And in fact, it's going to get a little more complicated than that. So I really don't want them spread out all over your computer. All right, folks, listen, I need 2 headlines and a paragraph, so I'm going to move a little faster. Let's get to the title first, right? So here's my title, right? And I'm going to write instruments in America. And what I'm trying to say is American music, the heritage of American music has been largely leaning on guitar, drums, and vocals, the heart of the blues. And we could throw in bass guitar, but it is a kind of guitar. So I'm simplifying it, right? That's American music. Blues, rock, just about all that stuff, source material that led to modern music, which I know now is much more complicated. So that's my argument. Let's go into the body. So we're talking about a homepage, and I want to say something to thinkers in here, not just creatives, artist types, and not just tech types, but just thinkers. The homepage, what's its job? It's not just about the code. The job of the homepage is somewhat general. You try to set the stage for all the other pages. What do they share? So my headline is going to be something about this, right? So I'm going to write instruments, and I'm going to be a little more specific, American music. And let's close up that H1. I want to repeat that H1s don't mean first headline at all. They just mean most important. So it often is the first headline because it's that important. The H2 is going to be smaller, and I want to say something specific about my argument about the instruments. So I'm going to write strings, percussion, and voice. And let's close up that H2. As you might guess, I'm going to follow this with paragraphs. I want to get photos into those paragraphs, but let's get all the basics down. So I'm going to copy and paste if I had real text. But for right now, I'm going to go back to lorem ipsum, L-O-R-E-M. So most of you guys have done this a bunch of times by now, L-O-R-E-M, and I'm going to hit tab. You know that's not enough text, right? We've seen it before. So the amount that you give me is really up to you. 3 or 4 times this. So I'm going to highlight the Latin. I'm going to do Command-C. And I'm going to paste once, twice, 3 times. Right? Even 4 times. Now the thing is, I do want it to be a proper paragraph. So you do have to go back and give it a P tag. Now guys, never forget the closing P tag. No one reads anything that doesn't have paragraph breaks. If you ever face something that's just text, wall-to-wall text, you don't read it. You know? I know one exception. I know one amazing writer who does that, and he's won several, what is it? Prizes for literature. I guess it's the Nobel, or is it the Pulitzer? Anyway, let's close up that paragraph. We better test, because we just did a bunch of stuff, right? So save it. Now I want to remind you of something. If yours is already in the browser, like if you already dragged it, it was white because there was no content in the body, so it was white. The title had said your title goes here. So all I have to do is refresh it. Now, if you didn't open it before, just drag it out now. Find your folder and drag it out. I want to show you guys something. Just getting used to the pattern here. Let me get some stuff out of the way. So you've heard me say this a few times, and I'm repeating myself right now. You have 3 minimum tools. Tomorrow it's going to be 4, but probably, we'll see. But today, for now, you need the folder open because you really need to make sure that things are showing up in there. By the way, I'll often check the time. This says 10:32. That was 1 minute ago. If that happened to say like 9:15, then I'd know I broke something. How could it say 9:15 for date modified? It means I must be saving it to a new place so that I don't know where my own files are. Anyway, keep your folder open. There's a lot of good reasons. Of course, Sublime, and of course, the browser. So I want to ask you guys something. I know this is pretty easy, but on a bad day, we're all going to blow it anyhow. There's a lot of little mistakes you can make. How's it going so far? Is your page showing up?
Yeah.
Yes.
So look, I want to tell you, here's the typical routine that I will do. And I'm talking on a real website. If I got a job this afternoon and I was going to start the website, right? I'll start the homepage right away, right? If I can, I'll do it with real content, the real words, and most of the time I'm not going to start until they do deliver the real words, or something close, right? But if not, I'll do what you just did. Most websites repeat themselves wildly. There's 2 or 3 designs for the entire website. Even Apple, which is a very beautiful website, they have 3 or 4 designs that they all fall into. So if it's all featuring a computer, they all have the same page. Just a different computer, different text. So they'll have 3 or 4 different designs because it's such a large website. A small website might have 1 design or 2, just the home page and all the others. So let's go ahead and quickly populate the rest. And I want to tell you what I would do if this was for a company that really asked for this project. If we said, listen, guys, we're only going to start with 4 pages because we want a guitar link, we want a percussion, we want a drums, and we want a vocals page. They also want a home page. So that's 4 pages. I would make the links now, right now, before the pages exist. So could everybody go after the body tag? And what I'm looking for is this.
Excuse me.
Thank you. I'm looking for this. I'm using uppercase letters because I like the way it looks. That's all, But I'm doing this. I'm going to write what I'd like the pages to be, what the links to look like. So it's going to say home, guitar, drums, and voice. Or let's say vocals. Sounds better. So we're going to turn these into links. right? Now remember, I could write this in any way I want, you know, because it's just English. That's not code yet. I got to be careful when I write the code. And I just want to say, as you might remember from the last couple of days, there's going to be code to the left and to the right of each link, and it would get crazy crowded like this and hard to look at. So let's just break them into separate lines. We've already figured out that the page doesn't change. I could save it and go to the browser, and it's still just straight across the top. There's no change at all. So I have the freedom to do it this way. Could everyone check to make sure that your text is showing up before we turn them into links? So we've done links twice before. This is the third time. I'm not sure I'm going to get to review this again, and it is going to be part of the midterm. Once you're ready, we still only have this one page, so we're staying very focused. We're working on just the home page. Each link is going to look like this, essentially. The left side always looks like that, and the right side always looks like this. So I want you to do all three of them, all four of them, I should say. And look, you notice I'm not copying and pasting. But I'll be honest with you, once you really got this down, just copy and paste. Write one and then copy and paste straight down. Right now, I just want people to instill this in your body memory, really, so you don't have to think about it so much. It becomes second nature, you know, like a musician who keeps playing the same scale over and over again. Okay, now we already know, because we saw it yesterday, if we save now, they're all going to look like links, but they're all going to look like visited links. They're all purple, which is a little weird, but at least we know they look like links. So let's go start doing this right. Can anyone shout out the exact text I have to put in these quotes on my line 7?
Index.
Index what?
.html.
Thank you. Index.html. So guys, listen, I want to tell you something that's a little on my mind. You know, a lot of Macintoshes are set up to always show you extensions. So you always see .jpeg, you always see .doc, you always see the dot whatever. Most Windows computers by default are not set that way. So people are on Windows are often a little more lax about extensions. I may actually have people on Windows change their preferences, so you just get used to always seeing this. Even when you're looking in a folder, you'll always see it. Because I know if you're not seeing .jpeg now, it's going to get very confusing. Today we'll do it on Faith, but those of you who know your way around Windows, you may already know how to change this. I have a handout on the subject, so I just have to find it and post it. But get used to that. We need the extensions a lot. Now listen, about the guitar page, we haven't made it, but by now you could tell, I'm going to name it the simplest name I could think of. By keeping it simple, I decrease the chance of me typing it wrong later. So I'm giving all pages the most obvious name possible. And I'm checking my spelling over and over again because I'm a mess when it comes to typing. So you can see my logic, right? There's a great name for the guitar page. I'm not using capital letters because I just don't want to have to think about it. So I made a rule. You know, if I do this, then I better save the guitar page with a capital G, and it gets too confusing. So I'm going to keep it all lowercase. Can everybody save what they've got? Just refresh the browser to make sure it looks the way you expect. So what I'm predicting is that you're seeing one purple link, and that's the one that says home, because you're on the home page, and that means it's in your history. Instruments in America. The others are not, so they're blue. Now, yesterday, we saw what would happen if you forgot to close a link, right? It looks like a huge link. So be very careful about your closing tags. Now, guys, I wanted to say something for possibly the last time. I may actually review this quickly before the midterm. This would be the fastest way if it was a simple website. You know, you'd borrow as much of this as you can get away with for every other page. We're getting really over the top with it. We're doing it exactly. The only thing we're changing is going to be headlines and photos, but we're starting with the headlines. So could everybody, we're about to make the next page, guitar.html. Let me just make sure that mine is correct before I copy anything. Mine looks good. All right, could everybody select all? and copy the code. By now, most of you got the shortcut down, Command A or Control A. Some of you prefer menus. Selection, select all. Then copy it to memory. Command C or Control C. Some of you prefer the edit menu. Copy. Always remember that's just in the computer's memory, right? Don't paste now. Let's make a new page to paste it on. So back in Sublime, File menu, new file. This is going to be the guitar page. Let's paste our code. All right. I want you to change the headlines. The big headline has to announce that it's about guitars, right? So I'm going to go to H1 and I'm going to write guitars. And I'm going to take it a step further. And I'm doing colon, electric, and acoustic. So remember, like, by the way, I'm a writer to a large degree. I've written a novel, which I've had agents look at. It's not currently published. So I like to write, but I just want to say something about a good web designer. A good web designer never looks at the website as though, oh, this is what's pretty. You know, here's my favorite color. Here's my favorite font. It's nothing to do with that. It's like getting inside the subject. So I'm trying to engage you a little bit on this front. You know, American music took the guitar really far. It was a classical instrument pretty much. You know, really bloomed as a folk instrument in this country until the couple of people who are credited for turning it electric in the early mid 20th century. And then, you know, music changed, you know, with that newly amplified instrument. Anyway, guitars, electric and acoustic. I'm going to say something about H2, right? So I'm going to write folk, rock, and I'm going to write, and that's not all. Because frankly, we all know it's used plenty in rap music and gospel music and experimental music. Classical music occasionally has an electric guitar. All right, let's save this. Now, I'm hoping you all know exactly how you have to save this one, right? Right, and make sure you spell it right. Let's save it to today's folder. And it's guitar, which is a strange spelling for a word, so I'm being very careful, HTML. All the links are going to look for this when someone clicks that link. They're going to look for guitar.html. And I'm going to save it. Guitar.html. I'm double checking myself a lot. All right, let's test it. Let's go back to the browser. You got to remember that you're still looking at your home page, right? You should be able to just click the link for guitar and get there. That looks good. And then go back to the home page. You know, if you haven't seen it before, click one of the other two links just to see what your computer says. Does yours say the same thing? Your file was not found? It's usually what you'll see when there is no file in the folder. We have to be very careful about it. I'm going to click my back button. So I'm currently on the home page again. Home, guitar, home, guitar. All right. If you got this pattern down, let's move quicker than we've been. I want to make drums next. Quickly, and then I'm going to make vocals quickly. I bet your code is still in your computer's memory. Let's find out. Let's just do File menu, new file. We're about to make drums. Paste. Now, by the way, if you pasted and the wrong thing showed up, it's just because most computers are made to only copy one element. So if you forget and you copy something small, that's all you're going to get now. You'll have to go back, select it, copy it again. But by the way, if you only copy once in the day, you could paste it at midnight tonight. It's still in the computer. Okay, this is going to be the drums page, so we better change the headlines. H1. So I'm going to write drums, drums and the beat. And then I'm going to go down to the H2. And I'm going to write the heart of American rhythm. Suddenly stumped on how to spell rhythm. Something like that. Is that right? Weird looking word. Feel free to correct me. Anyway, if yours is working, guess this should be capital. Save it. Now, there's only one correct name, right? Like if you accidentally save this as drum.html, the links won't find it. Right? So let's make this page and save it carefully. Drums.html. We got a simple drums page. Let's go back into the browser, click that drums link, and guitar and home still work. So it's looking pretty good. Now, I want to say something that always concerns me a little bit about teaching this class online. There's a lot of you, you know, what if it suddenly stopped working, you know? So, you know, we're good for time today. We have 2 large subjects coming up today, but we're good. Does anybody need a hand? Are any of your links broken? You know, you could, remember your mic, your cameras are off, most of you. You could turn on your mic and shout out or text me. I'm gonna look at the chats. All right, looks like you guys are in good shape. Listen, folks, don't get cocky. Everybody, including the tour guide, because there'll come a day where one link doesn't work and you're like, what? And you just cannot find it. Here's the worst error I've ever seen. This is maddening. Check this out. Maybe it won't happen to anybody if I show this one to you. Let me get this out of the way for a minute. Look at this. Let's say my index page had a space after the L. I just added a space, right? And I'm gonna allow it, right? You know, I know the icon's gone, so there's a clue, but I would easily skip this, never find that space again. And there's no doubt I'm screwed now. Watch this. I shouldn't have said that, but here you go. Vocals. Oh, hang on a second. That never was a page, so give me a minute. Here's the drums page. Watch what happens when I click home now. And they'll be like, what? I saw it in my folder. So you guys got to be really careful with names. That was an invisible space that just broke this one. I'm going to fix it. Everything's good now. Crazy one, isn't it? Mm-hmm. The moral of the story is this is a good place to be uptight when you're naming stuff. All right. If you haven't already, because I got the feeling some of you moved forward, we're going to make the vocals page. Now, if you beat me to it, just be patient, right? All right. Tested all the others. I got vocals left, and it's still in memory. So I'm just going to make a brand new page. I don't have to copy, just a new page and paste. I like Command V. I just got to keep track of what I'm doing. That's why I like going in the order of the links. I'm up to vocals now. So H1. I'm going to write voice as instrument. And I'm going to write breath, words. I'm trying to be poetic. I'm not sure it's working. Breath, words, and soul. You can make up different headlines as long as they're relevant. All right, and let's save it. Now, again, I think you got the pattern. As long as my named files, my named pages match the links will work. All right, so this got to be vocals.html. Here I go, vocals.html, absolutely critical, and it's going in the right folder. It's asking me for money. Hello, it says, give me your money. Okay, not just now. Okay, let's come back and try the vocals link. So at this point, if it worked, they all turn purple because they're all in your history, right? Later on, if we learn how to change the colors of these, it's a little complicated. We're gonna have to erase the history because right now it's only gonna show us the visited color. But right now, we got a working site. I wanna tell you what I wanna do, right? I wanna quickly rig up some styles. My big goal today is to get us to photos, but the photos are dependent on the styles, you see? So I kind of have to start with the styles, right? Now you might remember the way I've done it the last few classes was we chose the home page as the guinea pig. And frankly, every time I try something new, I try it on the home page. And when I'm sure it works, I take that element and I copy it. So the first thing we do is we go to the home page and tell it that there's going to be a style sheet, right? All right. So I need you to do two things. In the browser, make sure that you're on your home page. And if you're not used to looking up in the top of the browser, you should look there now. See what a path looks like. That's what this is called. This is a path to your desktop or to downloads, wherever you left your folder, all the way to the folder and seeing that your page is in there. That's good. So make sure you're on the home page called index. Then go to Sublime and do the same thing. Get to the home page. All right, folks. So we've done this twice before, once briefly and once we spent some time. The link to your styles lives in the head section only. So in your head section, make some room. Remember, the whole page is just a head and a body. Most of our work is in the body, but not everything. All right. This is the longest thing we've written together. I've written it in different orders, so I hope that doesn't confuse anyone. I'll comment on that in a minute. Let me just type. Now, while you're typing, I'm going to comment a little. Sublime may try to help you, so try to look and see if that's happening so you don't type stuff twice. Also, notice that link is a different color. Now, you may have Sublime set to different colors, but you could see that the word link has got its own because that's HTML. It's a tag like body and head, for example. But the others that are on my screen are green are the attributes of link. And a bunch of tags have attributes, these qualities. This one's picky. It needs all three. It needs href, it needs rel, and it needs type. So yesterday I didn't comment on these two. I want to do that now. This is telling the browser that it's a style sheet as a fact. This is not content. No one should read it, right? It's just running something under the hood. This, believe it or not, says pretty much the same thing. And I've often wondered why there's two ways to say essentially the same thing. So here's my hunch. As HTML evolves, as the internet evolves, the browser companies don't get along. And at first, a company might be like, ooh, we like this new code. We'll support it. So Google says, yeah, use this new code. But then maybe Safari says, no, not yet. So at some point, style sheets were new. And then I imagine when the browsers accepted it, some use this to say, okay, style sheet, I gotcha. And some use this. Clever web designers started writing both. See, it's a subject we don't deal with often. It's unsavory when browsers don't agree. We call it browser support. So this guarantees browser support. Folks, just watch your spelling here. They're always the same. This one changes. So I want to say a quick word about naming your own style sheets going forward. You know, I'll sometimes give it the boring name style.css because maybe I'm going to keep reusing that style sheet for all kinds of projects. But more often, I will name it after the subject so I could remember later on. Music.css, for example, or instruments.css. I'm just going to call it, yesterday, did we call it music.css yesterday? Anyone remember?
No, yesterday we did space.
Space. All right, let's go with that then. So go into your href, music.css, oops, not three S's, and save it. Now look, there's nothing to refresh. This line was written on faith. You know, and I keep doing that with you. We keep on referring to pages we haven't even made, right? Now we're going to make it. Just remember, only the home page is going to be styled. When we're content that it's really working, we'll copy the same line to guitar, to drums, and vocals. Guys, listen, I want to say something. Please be prudent. Don't copy it now. You think you're saving time, but then later you find an error, and then you have to fix it 4 times, right? So I would leave it just on the home page. Let's go ahead and make some quick styles. All right, we need a new page. So in Sublime, File menu, New File. You pretty much always start with the body. or most of the time, because you just get a lot done in there. So I'm going to quickly pop in a margin, and I'm going to go with one of the methods from yesterday. And I'll talk about it in a moment. I'm going to write a comment above that, just as a reminder. I will comment on these in greater length, but the first thing I want to make sure is that it works. If this is written correctly, right, then saving it will turn on our styles. So we do have to save it correctly too. Let me bring this back in a second. I just want to point out, we just agreed that we're going to call it this. So when you feel ready, please save it as music.css. Again, lowercase letters. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Music.css. It has to be in today's folder, otherwise the pages won't be styled. And save it. Your colors should change. Before I talk this up and take it further, let's just check out the home page. I'll bring the code right back. I'm going to go to the home page and refresh it. And I see that things have moved around. I've got big margins. The left side's the most obvious to see. So I know that this works. I want to come back and say two things if yours does not work. The first possibility is the line in the index page is incorrect. So we want to check that out first. The second possibility is a mistake here. So first, I'd go to the index page, and this is why we only tested on one page. And what are the common mistakes I see? This is probably the most common one. You left out a right side quote somewhere. So I'd look for that. The other common error is you left out the right side bracket. People often forget the right side of stuff, you know, because they're on the way out, they're leaving. But we need the right side. Make sure this is spelt correctly. All right, if that all looks good, I want to comment on the style sheet. All right, first off, guys, this is just a comment. So you don't need it if you already have this memorized. So let me just, oops, sorry about that. Let me just repeat something about it. The format is like this. And this only works on CSS, so let's just remind ourselves about that. You could write anything in here, because no one's going to see it unless they read your code. So people write stuff to their team, they remind each other of stuff, they say, don't change this next line, whatever. So what I did was I put in a reminder of the order. And I got a good question yesterday, is it always this order? And the answer is yes. So I want to tell you how to memorize this if you intend to do this in the future. I got the best trick. Like a clock, right? The first one's midnight. This is the top. You move around the clock clockwise, right? 3 o'clock. You keep going down, the next one, whoops, sorry. I got a mess next to me. The next one is the bottom, 6 o'clock, right? Then the clock comes around. This is the left. By the way, in many ways, the left is the most important because everybody sees it when they read left to right, when they read in English in many languages, left to right. Okay, guys, I don't want to stay on margin, so I want to move forward, right? Now, just got to ask you, does anyone need me to look at your code? This would be a good time, right? We can make it work. I know people get shy about it. I'm checking my chats just to see. All right, this is review, right? Guys, can I just stop for 1 second? I need to take a breath, but also I want to say something to you. The beauty of summer school, and I do this also in the winter, is momentum. I got to tell you, my experience with these summer classes have been fantastic. The students leave and they're much more saturated in the material. There was not a 7-day gap between every time we redid something. A lot of you are like, oh, I got this. We did it yesterday. And that's fantastic. No one gets great at anything without wild repetition. Look, I'm a terrible athlete. I really am the worst. But if I had a basketball hoop out front of my house and I made a deal that I'm going to shoot 15 baskets a day, every day, 15, I know that in a few months I'd get a basket. That's how bad I am. But I bet you in a year I'm getting 10 out of 15. I'm never going to be a star, but it's just repetition. You take on anything you want. Anything you want. I'll bet you could do it. You just got to be willing to put in the time for the repetition. All right, let me just take a look at my chat for a minute. Yeah, Farouk, where's your, you want to screen share with me? Listen, I want to ask you something. And listen, Omar, sorry. Now your name shows up strange on my screen, so I forgot which is first. Omar, you have a mic, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. I'm going to turn off my screen sharing. So you want to show me because it's not working?
Oh, no, it's working. That's fine.
Oh, no. Then, we're all the same. There's nothing to look at. When it gets creative, though, down the road, if there's cool stuff you want to share.
No, I just had the color background and all that.
Oh, you did that already?
Yeah.
Thumbs up. Folks, so listen, I want to say something. For any of you who find this extra easy, if you choose to move forward, you learn a little bit from W3 schools or elsewhere, just keep your head. Don't stop listening to me because I'm always going to include something you didn't hear, right? But I don't mind you moving forward. You can't expect me to troubleshoot stuff that is not part of the class, but you are welcome to, juggle in new material if it keeps you motivated. I'm okay. When I teach drawing, I let people doodle while I lecture. It's natural. This is similar, right? Okay, but let's do some styling real quick together. So what he was pointing out is, I'm imagining you used hex code, right? Because that's the flavor. Yeah. Let's get ourselves some color like he did. So I want to say something to everybody. Can you all watch this? I'm going to open a new tab. Now, don't join me yet. I want to show you something. If I just wrote color picker, right? A few interesting things happen. One, because I'm in Chrome, Google's own color picker showed up, which is crazy simple. But it also comes down and it mentions other popular color pickers all over the internet. Here's the one we've been using, HTML color picker. And I'm going to come back to this website, even though I don't mind you using this, and you'll see me use it on occasion. Some of these are awesome. Students have shown me their favorites. But I'm going to keep pushing this one on you for one reason. I want you to get comfortable with this website, W3 Schools. So if you didn't search yet, what you might want to search instead is W3S, because that's enough for the browser to know. And then type color picker. Just click it. So guys, I want to repeat something just to be a little clearer. There are many ways to find these colors, and I don't mind any one you choose to use, right? This happens to be an awesome website though. So we got to look at it yesterday. I just want to say a little bit more about W3 Schools. It's a responsive website. So if your screen is small, it rearranges itself so that you could use it even on a telephone, right? It would be hard to use this on a phone, but that's their logic. At least you could study, right? Wide, it just makes it easier for me to show you what I have in mind. All right, this is a music website. I'd like you to choose a background color, and I want to point something out. If I want to get all dark rock and roll about it, and I go to a dark color, I have to be clear that I won't be able to use black text. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But it's a strategic decision that I'm not going to make right now. So I'm going to choose some kind of color that looks good with both black and white, right? And I'm just thinking out loud for a minute. Now, once you choose a color, you can choose to make it darker or lighter before you move forward. You could just go right away and take the hex code. Now, if you missed yesterday's class, which I don't think anyone did, hex code has 6 characters, so you do have to count, make sure you don't leave one off. It always starts with a £. So I could switch to a darker color if I wanted. I'm going to add something today, right? If you're on the W3 Schools color picker, one reason people like it is there are more options further down. This one I rarely use. This means keep the tone, the light dark, but show me other colors. And frankly, it's not even accurate, so I don't really use this one too much. But if I go further down, this one I love. Saturation. The one on the top is the most intense. The one on the bottom has the color sucked out of it. It's back to gray. But in between is neutral, semi-saturated colors, which are very hard to mix. I don't know if it's perfect for what I want, but I could always move back and forth between these things. So you could pick one color right away, just from here, highlight the hex, or you could click around and explore other options. All right, now I'm rethinking. All right, I'd like for you to pick a color and highlight the hex code. I know some of you are ahead of me. Command C. All right, let's go back to Sublime, and I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit. In the body, I could give the whole body that color with this background dash color. You follow it with the hex that you just chose, but please do not forget this. Now, I want to give everyone a big warning since we've been doing CSS for a couple days now. If you forget this, there's like a period in English, right? So you have to end every sentence properly. If you don't, all the code following will break. So please be neat as you move forward. All right, let's save it. Get back to the correct tab. I'm leaving my color picker out and I refresh it. Now, if you're on the wrong page, I just remembered something. We probably should have copied the link because now only the home page is styled. So I know we're caught in the middle, so you probably want to test your color first, right? Test your home page. But if everything's still working, let's turn on the other pages because they're ugly, right? So if you haven't, I didn't, let's do that now. See, I start on the home page just because I want to make sure I'm not breaking stuff. Now I know it works. So let's go back to the code. It's the home page that has the magic line. This is the line that lets it know about the style sheet. So this is going to be really important. Once I'm confident in it, I copy the whole line. I'm really careful not to leave out the right side. And I'm going to go to all my HTML pages and put it in the same spot. They all have a head section. And they're all going to need to share this. There's no way to share it except for manually putting it there, and make sure you save as you go. You have to save them too. So go to all the other pages, be organized, and save as you go. I'm going straight across here. Only in the head section. Could go above title, it would still work. I'm in the habit of putting it after. If they're all saved, you should be able to click around freely and they're all sharing the same style decisions. So it no longer matters which page you're on while we style. Let's do a little bit more style then. I want to mention something. Let's say you really did want a black website and you're thinking, you know, I want most of my text to be white since the background's so dark. I want to show you how you do that. So you could choose a different color. This is what we're about to do. We're going to set a default color for all the words. So if you want to pick a color, go ahead and pick a color. Pick a whole new color you want. Or we could just do white. I'll tell you how to type white. But I'm going to copy this for now. Once you've picked your color, let's go back to the style sheet and back to the body tag. So this is what I'm trying to push on you right now. The body tag rules all your defaults. I want the whole website to have this margin. I want it all to be this color, right? Now I'm going to say I want most of the text to have a color. This is so easy to forget just because it's too easy, period. It doesn't say color of what. I wish it said font color or type color, but it doesn't. Save it. And when you're ready, go back to your tab and refresh it. I want to say a couple quick things. One, I could still make choices about individual types of item and give them a different color. The headlines come to mind. I could still change the color of those links, right, which we haven't gotten to, right? So I want to stick with a couple subjects. Let's quickly throw in a font. I just want to take a quick look at my own handout. Just want to check something. Great. I do want to say more about fonts today also. So we're going to go a little bit deeper with the subject of fonts than we did yesterday. Let's get started together though. If I tell the body tag to have a font, right, and that looks like this, it's called font family. The whole website will have the font that I choose, unless I want to tell any particular object it should be different. So this saves time though. Like I don't want that default font at all. So yesterday we tried something like this. We said, well, if they have Arial, give me Arial. Most people have it. If they don't, give me Helvetica. Some of you know what that looks like. They're almost identical, really. And then I said, listen, if they don't have either, I want this. And I'm going to say a little bit more about this in a moment. Could everybody save this? The commas are new, right? We haven't really used those in code. And I want to remind you what's going to go on here. Your audience, most people have, I don't know how many, but let's guess. Let's say the average person has 50 fonts. That means they bought a computer. They probably first learned what a font was. And they're like, oh, look at this. This is Times. And this is Arial. And maybe they oh, this is Comic Sans. God, I hate Comic Sans. But only people who go to get fonts have these huge libraries. So it's mostly artists who go out and find other fonts. If your audience has Arial on their computer, you're going to see it. If they don't, it's going to look for Helvetica. If they don't, it knows what a sans serif is. And I'm going to explain that a little deeper. But let's get a look. So I'd like you to go back to your current page and refresh it. All right, we saw this yesterday. And again, if yours is not working, everything else was working, yours is not working now, stare at this one line. Did you miss this little dash? Most common error, as I've said before, is to lose this or this. This is even worse. Because, right, that's saying I'm still in the body. Now it has no idea what's going on. All right. I want to talk up fonts, so I just want to ask you, are we still okay?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if in class teachers take breaks for 2-hour classes. I don't. I usually take my first break around an hour and a half, but it wouldn't make sense for us. Class is almost over. You know, I do that in my 4-hour classes, you know. So again, like if you have to slip out, use the bathroom or something, you know, that's fine, I get it, right? All right, let's talk up fonts for a minute. So I want to say a little bit that's practical. So this is a font family, and the reason being is if I had just written this, it would have worked for almost everyone just because Arial is so common. But if it was anything less common, most people would still see the original default font, which is probably Times. I'm not even sure. But this is what it looks, so this is a better plan. I want to ask you to join me on something. Could everyone go to the browser and open up yet another tab? This time, type this. We're looking for W3S one more time, but I want you to write web safe fonts. It's a very common search, so it might start typing for you. W3S web safe fonts, and hit return. You should be seeing Google offering you this link right on top, CSS web safe fonts. Let's click that. I want you to take a look at this. So this is font family being used in a P tag, which we can, but I'd prefer to put it in the body tag, which includes all my paragraphs. So it's a little faster the way we did it, but it's typed the same way. Notice they're using a different family. But let's go down here and I want to show you something. These are all serifs. And if you look on the right side, these little decorative elements that the letter T has, you see it on the umbrella part of the T as well as on the base of it. The H has also ones. Those are called serifs. Serif is Latin, and we only use it really when we're talking about typography. Old type fonts always have these. So if you look through it, the next set is very similar. They've got a skinnier line weight. The serifs are slightly different. They got little mild curves on some and flat in other areas, not like the one set prior. So this is they're subtle, they're not exciting. If you scroll further down, these are sans serif. That means without sans, without serifs. Any kind of designer has to know this subject. What does a serif look like? And what does sans serif without look like? hey, this is the same set we just used. So this is what Arial looks like. In Helvetica almost looks the same. I'm a little worried about using bold fonts because the headlines are told to be bold. So what happens? Do I get double bold, which would be hard to read? So I pretty much avoid these bold ones. There are better ways to bold things. This is Comic Sans, which I already trashed. And I'm trashing it only because, you know, by the way, I'm a trained cartoonist, which I never mentioned. These days, my art is different, but I was trained by some very famous people, and they would have never let me use this. You know, cartoonists are very picky about how they letter things, and this is just goofy. You could use it in class, but I wouldn't use it for anything more. I want to try this one, Lucida, because, you know, actually, let's go a little bit further. I don't want to try that yet. Let's keep going down. I want to show you. So the two sets everyone uses are serifs, any of these. Sans serifs, if they want a cleaner, more modern look. But I want to throw something at you. We're going to try just for fun. Could you keep scrolling down? Monospace fonts are less common, but we're going to try one just because it kind of looks cool in a retro way. I want to say a little bit about what monospace is. When you were little, or even before then, when people were using typewriters, so maybe the oldest in the class here, the typewriter, every letter took the same amount of space. Computers don't. So usually a letter I is much skinnier than a letter M. But these are monospace, so they look like typewriter fonts. Could you join me in an experiment? Let's highlight this family. Command C. And I want you to go back to your code in Sublime. Let's take this family out and paste yours. Or you can hand type it if you prefer. I just want to make a couple points. Be very careful, right? You don't want to miss this semicolon here. And you don't want to accidentally delete the closing bracket either. Now, I'll comment on why there are quotes here in a minute, but I would like us all to test this. So could you save your style sheet and find your tab and refresh it? So this is what that font looks like. And it goes good with something that's leaning heavily on early American music or mid-American music at least, because it feels like a typewriter, which might have been what people would have typed in the dates where these things began. I want to bring my code back, of course. Sorry about that. And I want to ask you something. Is it working? There's something I don't like that I have to mention. It's glitchy, and it's something that's been happening over the last year. You see these quotes around Courier New? Why does one font get quotes around it? That's disturbing and strange. And this was the argument, right? Any font that has a multiple word name, we would put in quotes. So like Times is fine, but Times New Roman would have quotes. The weird part of it is, at BMCC, on a couple of occasions, this wouldn't work until we took the quotes out. That totally confused me because it was the same equipment I use at home. So I really don't know what caused it. I had it once at FIT also. So the question becomes, which is safer? I don't know, to be honest, because it doesn't matter only what works at your house. You know, if you get 1,000 people in your audience, you want to work for all of it. So I don't know. I trust W3 schools. Most of the time I'm going to leave it this way. I'm going to keep an eye on this though, because that's weird. They rarely make mistakes. Is yours working?
Yeah.
So listen, I want to, be kind of a little quicker, because there's something I need to get to very soon today, right? About font families. One great way to start is like you did today. Explore this page in W3 schools. Why do they call these web safe? They're web safe because almost everyone owns the fonts on this page. Almost everyone. But they took some nerve, like I don't have Gadget. I don't even know what Gadget looks like. So they put Arial Black first, which is more safe. So they're all relatively safe. You notice how Comic Sans even says cursive next to it as well as sans serif. Cursive means script. So it's like, all right, we'll accept a script font if they don't have it. So I would start here, but I want to say something to anyone in here who's feeling adventurous. There are other ways to look at web-safe fonts. It's good to get to know. There are fancy websites which will actually tell you how many people have a font. So you can make your own font families. Like, oh, 50% have this font I love. I'll put it first. There's other fonts okay too, but 90% have it. Maybe I'll back it up with that. So you can custom design your own families, or you could just start here. If you find other families on the web, read what they have to say and try it. I got one last comment about this because I really don't know whether we'll have time for me to do it with you. What I'd love to do soon is Google Fonts. So I'm going to say a quick word because I just don't have time to go into it, but this is what that is. To use Google Fonts, you have to know how to use font families. So let me bring that back. Right? So you have to know how to use this line. But what Google Fonts does is they don't use web-safe fonts. They use web-based fonts. So bear with me for a second. They have a gorgeous font library that we're allowed to use for free, and it takes a few steps. So maybe when we're through all of this, I'll do a quick revisit. Like maybe when we do the midterms, because it'll make them look that much better. I'll show you how to break into their much larger font library. You don't download their fonts. You get a line from them that kind of goes here. Let me just show you quickly. It looks just like this one, the link line. And you typically follow it in the head section. And it's a line that's almost like a ticket to Google Fonts. And any page that has it could use the fonts you chose. So I don't want to be a tease about it, so let me just wrap that part up. You have to know web-safe fonts first to be able to use the current technology, which is called web-based fonts. If this is crazy easy for you, feel free to look it up. You'd look up Google Fonts, and you could probably teach yourself. If not, wait, and I'll do my best to squeeze it in. What we have to do is get photos in though, right? So I want to get a quick look in these pages right now to see if I could live with them. You know, I'd like to change the headlines and all of that, but I have to save some time, right? So let me just get a peek at my own. These are all saved. You should check that yours is saved too. I'm going into, back to my tab here just to get a quick look. You know, it's not bad looking. I don't like the look of the links, but I'm okay with it. I could live with this. Let's get some photos in here. All right, yeah, why not? So guys, I want you to join me on something that is going to take a little bit of thought. Can everybody look for a moment? My index, all my pages are here, but so is this drummer and this guitar player and this mic. And these are going to fit better on the 3 inside pages. So I think I want to start with the guitar page. So I'd like for you all to join me by going to your browser and click, make sure you're on the guitar page. So not drums, not vocals, not even home, the guitar page, because we're going to add a photo. Then I'd like you to get to your code and also get to the guitar page. Now, the basics are easy, all right? So let's start with that. I'm going to put a photo right underneath my second headline. So right underneath where it says folk, etc., I'm going to put a photo. So could you go into the code, make sure you're on the right page, guitar HTML. Let's make a line underneath your second headline. And we're going to put a photo there. I'd like you to join me in this abbreviated version of the code. This is the shortest version of the code possible. We're going to need to upgrade this, so I don't want anyone getting spoiled, but this is the shortest version. I'm on the guitar page, so what I'm going to ask for is this photo called guitarist.jpg, which will only work if it's in this folder. All right, so I'm checking the spelling, and here I go. Guitarist.jpg. Now let's see if that worked. Let's save it. Let's go back to our guitarist page. I'm going to bring this right back. And there it is. It's looking pretty sharp. And we're going to need to take this further. So, just in case it isn't working for anybody, I want to comment a little bit. And we're going to take this a little further today. The tag, we call it image. Most people pronounce it that way, the image tag, but it is IMG. So be very careful, IMG. Source is how we pronounce SRC. And it's very similar to href. You know how href goes to get something? This does too. It usually goes to get a photo though. So it's an attribute of image mostly. IMG space source equals. And then it says guitarist.jpg. And if you spelled this correctly, exactly right, and your quotes are in the right place and your brackets, you should see the image. Now I got to tell you what I'm a little worried about. Some of you guys know computers inside and out. I mean that rather literally. Some are newer. And one of the things new people have a hard time with is getting around their folders, And so take a deep breath. When I first learned this stuff, I was the newest in the room. I could not use the mouse. It was scary and a little embarrassing. The teacher was kind. And I was working as a computer professional within 6 months. I went from not being able, I was very proud of that because I had to. My survival depended on success at that point. I'd tapped all my resources, right? So if you're good with folders, you're in good shape. Are your photos showing up?
Yeah.
So again, if they're not, that's one line of code. The other error is you might be tired and you might be on the wrong page. Make sure you are looking at the page that you just put the photo on. All right, I need to upgrade this though, because in my mind, that code isn't really correct. So there's two things we really should do to make it correct. First off, I want to say something about an unusual element of the internet. The internet is very handicapped friendly, and it's always been that way. Web designers on the whole design code that works well for the handicapped. Now, I had a couple of friends, strangely, who were incredibly ill. One of them, he could use one arm and he could talk a little bit. So he's on the internet all the time, right? And I want to make sure he could use it. But let's say you were visually impaired. This is the part I want you to think about. Blind. You could be flat out blind. Could you use the internet? Yes, big time. Blind people have what's called a reader, a web reader. I've been told they're free and I'm very tempted to get one just to experience it. But it reads websites and it gives them choices and they can get around the web, but mostly it reads stuff. So what happens if they get to a photo? We have to give it something to read. So this is how it works. Let's go back to your code. Inside that bracket, we're going to add another pair that looks like that. So you make a space and it's Alt. So alternatively, if the person can't see the photo, read this, right? So I'm going to simply write a guitarist. So this is the way I imagine it. I don't have a web reader, right? But I imagine it says image of, and it reads your Alt. Image of a guitarist. I want to throw something in for business people. Google reads your Alt to know what the photo is about, right? So that helps you get higher ranking if it's about guitarists, right? So it can't read photos yet. I mean, it's getting there. So it might not continue to do this with AI. But up till now, anyway, it reads the Alt. So it's mostly there for the handicapped. It's also there for search engines. Just keep it honest, right? Don't write crazy stuff in there. Keep it relevant. Is everybody okay? There's nothing to test, right? I just want you to do that. It's a good habit. By the way, you won't get investors for websites unless this element is included, right? It's one of the things people test for, the Alt. We're about to make things a little harder, right? But I want to do things the right way. So I could skip this in an intro class, but I'm choosing not to, right? Photos are not usually loose. And the reason being is if you have a 20-page website and each page has 10 photos, you're going to have the world's sloppiest folder you've ever seen. So the 20 pages, the style sheet, you're up to 21, then 200 photos, 221 items in a big messy folder. I want to show you how it's typically done. Could everybody go to your folder? Now, folks, listen, I feel like I'd be cheating you if I didn't do this. This is heavy nerd stuff, right? But I really, it seems to me everybody does it this way, so I'd like you to know about it. In your folder, I need you to make another folder. So on most computers, you could click inside. On a Mac, hold down Control, click to get a menu in there. On Windows, just right-click inside the open folder and say New Folder. I want you to call this one Images, exactly. Images. No capital I. It's not image, it's not pictures, it's not photos, it's images, lowercase I. I want you to then get the photos into there. So I'm in list view, right? I'm not in this kind of view or in this kind of view. I'm on a Mac, so I know this doesn't help everybody, but I'm in list view here, my favorite view. Let me back up a minute. I want you to take the drummer and drop it in that folder. I want you to take the guitarist, this is the one we care about most, drop it in that folder. I want you to take the mic, mic.jpg, that microphone image, and drop it in the folder. Now I want you to hear me about something. When you move forward, you're going to make your own decision about subfolders. So if you're using a lot of videos, you're probably going to make a videos folder. If you're using a lot of animation, you're probably going to make an animation folder. You could not leave them all loose. If you leave them loose, it gets messy and you write the code the way you just did. But professionals write the code the way I'm about to show you, right? So let me put this aside. Right now, you temporarily broke your web page, and I want to prove it. Could you go back to that same page and refresh it? Now you're seeing the missing image icon. And don't worry about it. I just want to talk it up. Whenever you change folder structure, you break a link. Right? So you can't click a link or the photo disappears. So you're probably getting this missing image icon, right? Because you change your folder structure. Let's fix the code so it knows about it. All right, let's go back to Sublime. This is going to become second nature fast. I'm going to a lot of details. Find that image. Mine's on line 14. And let's change this. So it says source equals this. Now this means just look in my folder, but it's not there anymore. It's in a subfolder. So this is what we do. This is called a path, and this is the first path we've written that isn't obvious. We said, okay, image, well, you know, go find that image. This is the source. And it knows about the root folder, the one you made at the beginning. So we didn't have to tell it. But if you put folders in the root, this is how you start. So if I had a video in there in a videos folder inside my root, I'd write videos / animation, or animations / you just called yours images. If you really did name that folder images, if they really do match, you can go to the browser and refresh it. Now I made some kind of mistake, big shot teacher. Let's see what I did. Oh, guitarist? Wait, it is called guitarist. Okay, so it's in there. Is yours working?
No.
No, this is very odd.
Yeah, mine's working.
Mine is working.
Mine is working.
Yeah, so let me just, it is called images. Let me see if I made any goofy name that I kind of mentioned earlier. No.
Did you save it?
Did I not refresh it? I thought I did. Did I save it? That's another good question. Let's see, I bet you I didn't.
You didn't save it.
There you go. Hey guys, excellent troubleshooting, you know. And I gotta tell you myself, I'm at my sharpest in that first hour. I'm pretty sharp, second hour. You see me by the fourth hour, I'm like, what? What? And I'm gonna do that a lot, especially saving. I probably just did Command D or some nearby letter instead of Command S. All right, so it works. Guys, I wanna say something quickly about this, right? Just to be clear, this is the way a professional is gonna work. We're gonna taste, we will get to do this together. Usually, myself, I have this other folder that I called original images. And the reason I have one is there may be 50 photos I'm thinking about using. And they're all the wrong size, right? So what I do is when I pick one I'm gonna use, I'll move it into the images folder and I'll fix it in Photoshop, which is what we're gonna start doing tomorrow, right? So only the finished ones are gonna live in the images folder. Now these I prepared for you and I wanna make a point about them. They are all 400 by 400 pixels. So when we put images on the other pages, they're all gonna feel uniform. Also, I made them all black and white. So they have this quality as though the same photographer shot them, but they didn't. And I did that purposely to get a stylistic, you know, continuity, right? I wanna go put pictures on the other two pages. So if you look in your images folder, you could see the ones we have chosen. We got drummer.jpg. So let's move over to the drum page. And I'm gonna do this from scratch again. So let's go to the drums page. And to keep it consistent stylistically, again, let's go after the second headline. So that's my line 14. I'm on the drums page. I chose to put it right after the headline and I'm getting started. IMG. Source, SRC equals. Here's the quotes and I'm going a step further because I want to do the whole thing. This is what I'm going to call, this is the basic right here. And I'm going to fill them both out. I know that all my photos are not loose in the root. So I have to go this extra step of writing images slash. They're all in the images folder now. We dragged them in there. Now, I got to peek quickly, so just give me a minute. What's it called? Drummer.jpg. So now I'm going to write that, drummer.jpg. So you notice where the quotes are, right? They're outside of that folder slash picture. Folder slash picture quote. About the alt, it's just a guy playing drums. So I'm going to keep it simple. A drummer. So this is the way I imagine the reader probably has one of those computer voices. It probably goes image of a drummer. But at least that person doesn't have to be left out. All right, let's save it. I'm going to bring that right back. Go to your drummer page. Nice. Now, if you think you could do the vocals on your own, do it. But try to do it without copy and paste. I'm going to do it. I'm hesitating a minute only, just in case anyone else wants to do it on their own. So we're talking about the vocals page, because right now it's left out. All right. So I'm going to vocals next. I know where I've been putting it, right after the headline, so I'm going in that same spot. And I'm going to write the same basic code. Now down the road, I'm going to copy and paste most of this stuff, like I tend to do. But I want us used to these things. This is the basics. And most of the time, you're going to work with that images folder. So I'm always going to do this, images slash. And I totally forgot the name of that photo, so give me a minute. Mike, MIC, right. MIC.jpg. Oh, by the way, that's going to work. I could leave this empty, but I just want to get in that habit. It's just a conscious thing to do. You know, I had two disabled friends. One depends on the internet. The other, well, never mind. All right, so let's see, alt. So let's see. All right, so let's see. So I make it a little fancy, you know, a vocalist's mic, a vocalist's. All right, I'm just going to write a vocal mic or microphone. So, you know, you write what you think is appropriate. You got the point, though, right? So that's English. You know, it's only going to be read to those people. All right, let's save it. Let's go back to the browser and have a look. That's the vocals page. So I wish I brought in a fourth photo for you today so that the home page would look a little bit better. Here's home, here's guitar, here's drums, and here's vocals. This is looking pretty good. I do want to take this a little bit further, even though it's 11:40. I just want to give you a taste. You know, you'll notice I always do this thing, right? There's always something new and then a taste of just the edge of it. at the end of the day, what would we do with this photo? You know, there's two things that come to mind. One is give it a picture frame, which would be pretty cool. You could put picture frames around anything. I wouldn't put it around a paragraph because it looks goofy, but I'll put them around headlines sometimes and often around photos. The other thing that I'd like to see even more is I'd like to see this text wrap around it. Now, if you, maybe some of you could picture that and others cannot. You know, usually in a magazine, you wouldn't see a bunch of empty space next to a photo unless the designer was very crafty, they had a reason. Usually the text is going to come right up and wrap around it. So if we have enough words, and we don't have a lot of words, if we have enough, it'll wrap all the way around, including the bottom. Let's see what that's like. Now, folks, I want to warn you, I'm going to be changing this code over the next few days, even when we get Photoshop involved, to get a little mature about how we use our photos. This is the first taste, and it's called float. Watch this and join me. Let's pick a page so we're all on the same one. Can we all go to Guitarist? Even though the style is going to affect all the pages. I'm on Guitarist just to get started. Let's go to Sublime, and we want to go right to your style sheet. So today we styled body. The other day we also included the headline. I want to show you what we could do with IMG. So you could style most HTML tags. You're basically using one language to tell the other language how to look. So I'm going to tell all my images to share a few features, right? And right now I'm going to tell them all to move to the right. And not only that, but take the text and have it wrap around the opposite side. So let's do that. It's kind of a cool thing. So I want you to go inside this new style rule. That's what some people like to call it. It's a rule. This is the rule about images. And I want you to write this. Float, colon, right. Just that. It's short, but it's cool. Be careful with that colon. Be careful with the semicolon. It always ends that way. Closing bracket. Make sure you don't delete this one. Remember, this one above belongs to body. You don't want to break it. All right, if these three lines look good, these new lines, save it. Go back to your page and refresh it. Now I want to show you something. This is how it would look on a smaller screen. Watch what the text is doing. It's wrapping around it. It's called text wrap. If you go to your other pages, all the ones that have photos are going to do it. This is getting very close to a real website. Now, first off, is it working?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to bring that code up in front of people. I want to say a little bit about this controversial code, really, to tell you the truth. It's easy, right? It is. Thing is, it causes all kinds of troubles when you start adding complicated things around it. So people are mad at float. You know, you get only two choices, float right or float left. And it literally floats that photo out of the whole structure you made. It's good that the text knows what to do. The text knows, oh yeah, let's just wrap around it like water around a floating raft, you know? So you could actually change this to left. Now, before your image was on the left, wasn't it? But this is not going to be the same. It was on the left, that's true. But let's save this. So change it to left. You go back into the browser. It doesn't matter what page you're on as long as there's a photo, and refresh it. Now, I need to make some changes to this, but I want to make a point. Before you wrote those lines, it looked like this. The text was not wrapping, even though the photo was on the left. Once you added those lines, it's not just about whether it's left or right. It's about what the text is going to do. We need to do one more thing, though, because there's something really. Do you all have your image on the left? This next thing helps if we all have the image on the same side. There's a CSS item that I've been really waiting for a chance to show you. This is the perfect chance. And it's called padding. Now, Jonathan, you asked me the other day about margins. Do they always go in the same order? And I'd said, yeah, there's other ways to make space, and they also go in the same order. we're about to try it. So I want to tell you what padding is. It's a relative of margin, but this is what padding does. Padding pushes stuff away. So if I tell an object, like my images, push stuff away, nothing will touch it. You know when you're on the subway during rush hour?
Mhm.
Before COVID, you were already like, whoa. Now I'm like, I need my arms to be longer. I need 6-foot arms. Really, that would be perfect. And I wouldn't have to bend down to pick things up. Oh, anyway, all right, back to this. Let's take a look. The text is touching the photo. That's just wrong, right? I need padding. The bottom looks okay, but the text is even too close to the bottom. So let's try a couple things. It's one style sheet, so we get to change the whole website at once. Could you add a line right under float? So we're still talking to your images. We're telling all the images, okay, guys, float left. Tell the text to swim around you. But we need you to have a little more room. So I want you to try this first. And save it. I'll bring this, in fact, let me just move it over here. I could do both here. And that looks a lot more professional, a lot. I got 24 pixels of space. That was paragraph, the letters are 16 pixels, just to give you a visual. So this is like a letter and a half's worth of space almost, you know, if they were lying down. If you want a bigger number, try a bigger number, see what that looks like. This is 32 pixel margin. Now, I want to tell you something about this though. Like, it looks pretty good, but I don't really like that the top has a space above it. And if you look on the left, I don't really like that this has a space here. Now, if it doesn't bother you, you're already done. You got 32 pixels all the way around. But if you don't like it, we're going to go in the same order as the margin went. Top, right, bottom, left. So this is what I'm going to do. I don't like this 32 pixel drop. So I'm going to change this. I'm going to tell the top to just be 0 pixels. I don't want any added space. The right looked good at 32. I'm going to keep it. I'm thinking the bottom also looked good at 32. So I guess I'm going to keep that. Now the left, it's indented. I don't really like that. I want it to line up with the text. So I'm going to pop in 0. So again, in case you want to comment that, since it is the same, oops, sorry. That's the order we just went in. So again, you can use one number. It's acceptable, right? This is for any of you in here who just feel like you need more control. You know, part of that depends on how you see your future. If you're going to be a web designer, you have to know padding inside and out. So you're going to need to know the 4-number method. All right, so let's see where that goes. I'm going to save it and come back over here and I'm going to refresh it. And that looks quite a bit better. I want to throw in something, but I just want to check on everybody for a minute. Is this still behaving?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. And I know, like, again, some people are like, I'll figure it out later. And that's okay. If it doesn't work and you want to go that road, I accept that too. But let's take a look. I want to say something to people who are intending on visual work, any kind of visual work. You have to train yourself to see space as much as objects. When you're a kid and you learn to draw, they're like, you know, draw mommy, you know, draw the flower, draw the dog. When you get older, you have to see the space between the mother and the dog, because that space, we call it a negative space, is critical. And most of what you see is empty space. So the shape of emptiness is very important to us, even though we never talk about it. So padding and margins and all of that. If you're a photographer, you have to be really good with empty space. You're not photographing objects, you're photographing rectangles, which include objects. So anyway, this is important. I want to add something just for fun, and I'll try to make more time for it. But I want you to just try this one. I'm gonna leave that up for a minute. It is a picture frame. Picture frames are called borders. And there's many styles. You always have to start with the style you're gonna use, and solid's the most popular. We'll get a peek at some others, but this is the most common one. So if you knew one, this would probably be a good one. You tell it how big you want it to be, and you give it a color. This, by the way, is black, so I could have written black. That would work. Oops, sorry. That would work. But I'm sticking with hex code just to get us used to it. All zeros, 6 zeros. All right, save it. Get a look. Oh, that's weird. Hey, give me a second here. Top, right, bottom, left. Aha. You know something? It's working, right? But I want to change the way this works. Guys, could you change the word padding to margin? Just give me a chance to show you the difference. Here's my problem before I do it. The padding is inside the box. So my picture frame is rather weird since I have no padding on the top and none on the left. I want you to change this to margin, which is what I should have done. Your teacher was not crystal clear today. I'm going to fix it though. So you're changing that line to margin. Save it. Come back here and refresh it. Now this is what we wanted. You see the black border? Now guys, I'm going to come back to padding in a minute. We're going to end there, right? But I do want to just go over something. This is the code I want you to try, just to be clear. So the margin told the picture and the frame, everything, push stuff away. So margin was the better choice. I'm going to do one more thing with border, and then I'm going to show you padding, how it would behave correctly in here. All right. If you want to see different borders, try a thicker one. Save it. Just get a look at it. See if you like it. Bold. You could change the color, of course, if you want. You know, you all have color pickers out, but I'm going to speed it up. That means white. They're both a little over the top. I only know 3 by heart, so don't think I'm showing off. I know black, white, and gray. This is gray. I'm going to stick with it. So listen, since I'm running out of time, I'm going to not talk about other styles for long. I'm just going to give you one more to get a peek at. I'm going to save this. It's kind of nice look. I don't know how rock and roll it is, but it's okay. Guys, I'm going to pause for a moment, and then I have to fix some trouble that I caused. But let me pause first. There are many ways to write border. So if you went to W3 schools, they're going to show you several ways. I wanted to show you the one that strikes me as most useful, because there's 3 things you always do. You choose a style, you choose a weight, we call it, how thick it is, and a color. So you could do it in one line. There's 3 lines I could write: border style, double, border weight, 10 pixels, border color, right? But it'd be a lot of typing. You always start here. The first thing has to be the style. These can go in any order. Look, I hope I didn't confuse you, but I want to talk about the difference between margin and padding for a minute, right? So I want to simplify. Margin, other than body, right? Because body's a little different, right? It sets a margin for the whole page. But if you give any other object a margin, it makes room for itself. What does padding do then? Try it. Let's go right under the margin, and we're going to add padding also. And I think you're going to see this crystal clear in about a minute. I'm going to ask for just 5 pixels, just one number. I think that's better in this case. Just one. So I just added this line, line 12. Save it, refresh it. I'm going to make mine 15 pixels so it's easier for you guys to see it. There's the code. Does everyone see the difference between padding and margin? So I'm going to put it in English though. Padding is the space inside of a box. Margin is the space outside of the box. And believe it or not, this is going to get confusing because if there was no border there, you'd be seeing the sum of both with no evidence of why. But when there's a border, you could see. Padding's inside, margin's outside. I want to give you one bit of advice. When in doubt, if you're not sure, use margin. Margin is far more useful, far more. You'll need both, but margin is more useful. So folks, I'm going to need to wrap it up. And I want to get a look at the handout before people start taking off. And so here's a bit of the wrap up that I want to say. Let me just move stuff over. So this web page has grown up quite a bit from where we started. The home page is similar to what we've had, but once we've moved forward, we've gone a little further with style. We used it for the sake of photos mostly. So we have what I call a featured photo. This is 400 by 400 pixel square, by the way. So I could have smaller ones that look like little thumbnails or large ones that are big heroic images. We figured out how to do it quickly so that the whole website knows about it. So we could simply go and add new pages quickly and they're all going to show up with these colors and ready for photos just like these. Before I go to the handout, I'd like to ask anyone if you've got a question for me. You could turn on your mic, my favorite, or you could chat me.
I have a question.
Please.
So yesterday I went ahead and tried to add a photo myself.
Okay.
For today's class. When it comes to photos online and naming like Creative Commons, because I know we need to leave a underneath.
John, you're a sophisticated guy. That's a sophisticated question. And it turns out it's part of this class. So can you wait a little bit on it? You know, he's asking me a legal question, basically. He wants to make sure that the photos he takes are acceptable from a legal perspective. And I want to add from a moral perspective. You know, it's really easy to judge everybody else, but always start with yourself. Would you be okay if someone took one of your photos offline and used them in a project that they made $1,000 on? And you didn't even know about it, never mind, get paid? So Creative Commons is something he knows about, which is one way to figure out what the permissions are. What are you allowed? So we'll wait a little bit because that's going to take a little while. But we're going to use Google Images to help us establish what the Creative Commons designation is so that we know if it's okay. So we're going to be doing that in a couple of days. I don't think tomorrow, but maybe. If not tomorrow, the next day. Also, I want to add was even if you took it and said, you know what, I'm not showing it to anybody. Right? There's no moral disaster then if you're keeping it for yourself. But it would probably be the wrong size. So one of the biggest problems with getting images off the internet is knowing how to pick them to begin with, and then how to change their size in a mature way, which, by the way, is usually Photoshop, right? So
use them.
What's that?
Sometimes in a different setting. So let's say if hypothetically I'm in a speaking engagement, which I'm making $1,000, and part of my display of information includes photos from the internet. I don't think anyone there is going to tell on me that I can get around that.
That's
like
true. That's true. And look, I've got to tell you something. If you're like in the desert and you're on the highway and there's no cars and it says 50 miles an hour, I don't think you're going to do 50.
Good analogy.
You're probably not. But when you get into the neighborhood, you better. You know, if there are kids around or whatever, you better. So I think when it comes to images, like you really got to figure out in your own heart if you see a victim or not. I would agree with you, Andy. And frankly, you could use my images in that scenario, and I'm okay with it. But I don't really want them put on someone else's website, which could have endless traffic. And frankly, I've worked hard to gain my skill level, and I really feel like I should be asked. I was just asked, actually, yesterday from an online magazine that hasn't begun yet, if they could use my work. And I, you know, there's no magazine for me to look at. I don't know what these guys are about. I want to say yes, but then what if they're like haters? And then my images are up on a hater website?
But
don't.
I didn't think of that process, but there's also the attention that you're going to get because you have to be somehow credited in a magazine setting. This is Ira Epstein's work.
So, you also are a clever guy. You have a business acumen, and I would agree with you. This is why we can't be, listen, though, those of you guys going into the arts, don't be hung up about people stealing your work. You want to be smart, of course you do, but you have to take some chances, because I'm with Andy on that. When your work's out there, people start to know who you are. To be honest with you, I have a kind of artwork that I kept to myself for years. So I'll do commercial work, but I have this other artwork, that's also, and at a late date, I decided I'm ready to start sharing this carefully. So I started sharing it on Instagram. And anyone wants to see it, you could look me up on Instagram, Ira Epstein. And, it worked. Somebody in down south, long story short, was like, people are stealing your work. I don't think he was right, and I don't really want to go into the details of it. But I was like, what are they doing with it? You know what I mean? If they're printing it out and hanging it up at home, that's great. I would like to know, but it's still great. I'm like cool with it. If they're lying and saying it's theirs, well, that's not good. So I don't know. It's really easy to steal my work right now, at least from Instagram. But you're right. So we're all going to have to make our own choices. I'll tell you one choice I made, though. If I'm going to publish anything, put it on a website or in a magazine or anything like that, then I make sure the artist gives me permission or I pay for it. One or the other. If it's unpublished, I'm showing it to one person or people coming over to my house, I'll use whatever I want. And that's my moral designation. I don't want to interfere with anyone's professional life in any way, in a way that's unfair. It's hard enough to be in the arts as it is. So yeah, I'm okay with him using it in a meeting. And again, you could use mine. You might feel the same, you might not. We'll learn more about Jonathan's excellent question pretty soon. So I want to wrap things up, and I want to look at the handout to point out a couple things that are important before I forget. So where's my handout? Here we go. Let's take a quick cruise. So again, if you still need a computer, because I think only two people wanted one, and then they both ordered a computer. I think a third person came who also chose to buy one. So I'm not sure anyone needs a computer anymore. I know some of you are still waiting, but that's a little harder for me to help with. Everybody, we need Photoshop by tomorrow. And, I'm concerned because like I said, it's like, I don't use Windows and, I'm the kind of person, I load software, I look the other way. I don't even think about it once it's done. So everybody, please do your best to fend for yourself, right? Here are instructions, and here's a video to help once you've got Creative Cloud loaded. We really need Photoshop by tomorrow. I'll try to help. I just don't know how good I'm going to be at it, to be honest. It's nothing I've ever been asked to do, right? But we could help each other. Photoshop's coming tomorrow. All right, you all know about where to watch the videos. They usually take about an hour for me to get them online. A little repeat about how we made the links, right? The links always look the same, right? You'll notice, though, we've been putting the same links on every page, which is what you do on a small website. This is how we link to the style sheet. We also put this on every page in the head section. But after this, I really just started pointing out stuff about style for a while. I talked about the W3 Schools color picker, and this is a live link. Anytime I write a link, you could click it. I went over a text color. Here I put it in a paragraph, but I could have put it in anything except for the image, because images don't have text. A little reminder about background color. I used it in the body tag, but I could have used it in anything, headlines, even in the image. Since we have padding, you'd see the color behind the image. Margin we tried, border we just learned today. Font family we learned a lot more about today. And I included another link to learn more about font families, the one we got to look at earlier today. That's where we chose the family from. So this handout's really pretty valuable. We moved on to photos, and this is brief, I'll admit. I didn't say much here in the handout, but it's got the two main attributes, source and alt. Alt is an active faith. You're doing this mostly for handicapped people, but also for search engines. They will read it. I got some dummy code here that includes just about everything we did today, really. The HTML looks kind of simple. It wasn't a big HTML day, really. The only thing new is this blue part, and that's why I put it in blue. That's the brand new line. There was more doing on the style sheet, though. So one thing I want to say about today's style sheet is we didn't do float. I threw that in today. I'm probably going to review that one tomorrow because it's that important, right? Float. This is the one thing that isn't actually mentioned on today's handout. All right. I do want to say something about homework. For better or worse, I'm given very little homework, right? And I just want to say, look, if anyone has to go, the class ended 5 minutes ago, you're good, right? But if you want to stick around for a few minutes, I'm going to stick around if you finish what I'm saying, I guess. I give very little homework in the summers traditionally because you work a lot with me. So the purpose of the homework sort of fades out a little bit. During the school year, I can't afford 7 days where you forget what I taught, or even 3 or 4. So I try to give enough homework to keep momentum. I know you're thinking homework's for grades, right? Yeah, but that's the second purpose. The first purpose is to get good at stuff. I wish I taught at a school without grades. One of my first schools had no grades. You know, it was for kids. Well, what am I talking about? No, it wasn't. I'm tired. It was adults. It was continuing ed, though. So people just came to learn. They didn't care about grades. They wanted to learn, get a certificate. So for us, the homework's become important because I am going to grade them. The first one's the easiest. So look at yesterday's handout. If you didn't do it, it's due Monday. If you don't have a computer, you've got a good extension, currently indefinite extension, so you can wait. But if you set up, don't let it add up because very soon, you know, it's only 23 days, right? We did 5, there's only 18 days left. You know, this is going to be over like that. You know, the midterm, it's got to be about a week away off the top of my head, just doing the math. If not next week, yeah, probably the tail end of next week. So do your homework, get it out of the way. It's on yesterday's handout, just go to yesterday's handout. There's no new homework today. Any other questions for me? Yeah, Marissa.
I had a comment and a question for kind of what Jonathan was talking about before. I saw that I was starting to try to make like a little basic website for my friend. He does ballet and stuff, so I was trying to make like a portfolio sort of thing.
Ooh.
And I found on Etsy that artists sell things like social media icons for like $5, $10, really cheap. I even found some that were like $2, and you just download them as a little JPEG or PNG file. People make like background art for websites, and they tell you like, oh, you free for personal or commercial use because like you're buying it from them.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, it was really cool. So I know like stock photos for like real photographs seem kind of pricey.
Usually.
But for things like icons and stuff like that, if like you don't want to make all the art yourself.
You know, I want to mention to you about that. There are, if you look hard enough, and I really should have like a tally of these things somewhere that I could share with you, but I admit that I don't. There are some much less expensive websites for stock photos at a very high level. I think a lot of them are newer photographers, but some of them, you know, they've got degrees and they just got out of college or whatever. So for $5, you can get a photo from someone that's going to cost you $50 once they're known. You know, so like currently they have these like $5 photos, or even free, because they just want your attention, the way musicians will share music. But I think you tapped into something great. There are free icon websites, by the way, out there. Some of them involve you downloading. Some of them work with code, you know, where you actually learn the code for certain symbols. I've used a number of them. The little triangles on my website you click to open paragraphs is actually from one of those websites. So if the name comes back to me, I'll remind you. But you tapped into something great. Look, I do want to add something, though, to your particular project working for the ballet dancer. Portfolios are a little hard to do, right? And there's 2 ways to look at it. One is, believe it or not, by using float. So if I had 9 images and they were all small, so let's say they're all like 300 pixels wide, you know, and 300 pixel squares even, right? And they were all told to float left. So imagine this. And I dropped 9 photos right after each other, you know, image, 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 just, but all the IMGs are told to float left. This is what would happen. The first one moves to the left, like the first car of a train pulling in. The second one goes as far as it can, and it'll come right next to it, right? Because like a train pulling in, it can't make it all the way, so it gets right. Then the third car, fourth car, in this case, third, fourth picture. Now, in my example, they're 300 pixels wide, these photos. So at a given point, they won't fit, right?
Yeah.
So typically what will happen is the one that won't fit will just go to the next row.
Yeah,
Can I
I
show
was
you something?
getting a little bit.
I want
mean,
you to see
I just
something.
started. I'm still in like the early stages.
I know, Marissa, watch this though. I want you to see this, right? Guys, this is risky on my part. So if it doesn't work, I may back out. But let's take a look. This is the guitarist page right now. The photo's a little on the large side for what I want to show you, but I'm going to stick with it. So this is the guitarist page. Here's my guitar page. Let me just move this stuff around. Let me make this a little smaller. What if I had a bunch of photos, right? Now, since I don't, I'm going to cheat like crazy. And I am just going to use the same photo, you know? I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these, right? Later on, I could just change this part, right, to all the different photos, right? So I could use that code. Let's see what happened. This should be weird. Look. And the reason this happened is on a big enough screen, I might be able to fit a third photo. Now, not on my laptop anyway. So the next one couldn't fit. It went down. I never told it to have a second row. And look what happens if the browser won't even fit the second column.
Right. I mean, that's kind of responsive though,
Isn't
right?
it?
But
It is. It is rather responsive. You need to learn more to make sure that the photos get small on a phone, which I do include, which I do intend to include in this class. So you will learn that. It's just 2 more lines. But if you think of that, it's pretty interesting. I just want to say though, that might not be entirely satisfying. It's hard to say, you know, because what we're looking at now is grid-based design. You know, I'm getting columns and rows now, and that's what we mean when we say grid-based. So what most people are doing right now is they're learning this thing called CSS grid. Now, if I was going to teach the intermediate version of this class, or I was your next web design teacher, I would go right to CSS grid. You guys will be the most ready group for that next step, but it's not easy. It's a whole other level of this, you know. So you have to know the stuff we're learning to be able to do it. But with CSS grid, you're like, oh, I want it to look like Zoom. You know, you figure it out, and it gives you code to do that. And you put in the boxes what you want: photos, text, videos, whatever. You have a layout like a magazine with great control, or a newspaper. And if you do it extra well, you could also tell it how to change for small browsers, tablets, phones turned, right? So that subject is CSS grid. I do want to say last couple comments about that. The hardest thing about web design over the last 10, 15 years has been the grid changing. Like, we need layouts like Zoom looks like. And if we go to CNN right now, you'll see how crazy their rows and columns are. Or even Craigslist and any elaborate website. And, you know, a magazine designer using InDesign is going to learn about the grid also, but they won't do it in code. So what's happened for us is the web wasn't very good at it. So artists took stuff that wasn't made for it. Do you know what a table is? Like, if you go to the movies in the physical world, you see this list every movie, and then next to it every time, right? Maybe the ratings even, and that's a table, you know, and it comes from math, these math tables of information, train schedules, all of that are tables. Since HTML was good at tables, artists like myself figured out how to do really cool design in tables. But it was always a hack. It was never the right way to do it. It's just all we had. So over the last 15 years, the technology kept changing. No one ever agreed on it. So there's this thing called Bootstrap, which I loved, and now I don't know how I feel about it. People aren't using it. This thing called Skeleton. There's Float, which you learned today. The second method of grids was all about float. You asked me about divs the other day, didn't you?
yeah.
So it's all about div and float.
Okay.
Right? That's the second method, and I taught that method for years. Where right now I'm a little nervous about it because everyone's moved to this new thing, including myself, as of this year, starting in January, this thing called CSS Grid. It's smarter, it's cleaner, it's neater, it gives cooler options, and everybody's running toward this new method of the grid. I'd like it to become a norm because I'm just tired. I don't want it to keep changing. Can you imagine if cars suddenly said, we decided it's better if the gas pedal was on the other side? I mean, how long do we get to practice before we go out on the road? But in web design, it just keeps changing. The stuff I'm teaching you hasn't changed. It's stable. It's a good ground, a good foundation. But I don't think CSS Grid is going to. I really like, and by the way, best place to learn it is probably W3 schools. Probably. So look, maybe later in the semester, I could be persuaded to show you where you might want to get started. But I would like you to keep your head for right now because you're doing great. Make sure you get everything I cover you. If you do expand into any of these areas, just keep a measured diet about it. Don't lose your head. Like if things get wacky, back up. It means you went too far too soon, and just know better and back up. Young designers tend to write too much code and they leave broken code while they try something else, and they make messes and then they get turned off. So I want you to keep a reasonable pace. But W3, by the way, I do have a tutorial about W3 schools. I don't remember, about CSS Grid on YouTube. And I don't claim to be an expert. I only started using it in January, and yet strangers have been watching it. There must be a demand for it because, over 100 people have seen this video that I made for one class. I don't even know how that happened. So I'll probably share that with you. I'm not going to do that right away because I think it's a little early.
Okay,
But
thank you so
I'd be
much.
glad to share it with you. Yeah, because what's online? My pleasure. Anybody have any other questions for me today? So folks, I do want to say, as far as I can tell, you guys are rocking. It's easier. What's that, Jessica?
Oh no, I'm sorry. I meant to fix my video.
I just want to say, in the physical classroom, I walk around, I say hello a lot. I'm famous for walking over to people and saying, how you doing? Or how's this treating you? Is my famous line, the new element. How's this treating you? And I fix stuff. And I know if people are getting it physically. In this place, though, I don't. It takes too long to screen share. Otherwise, I'd say, let's go around the room, zip, 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 But it just takes forever. So I don't really know. I can only go by your responses. If people are shy and they're not getting it, you should text me. I've been checking text a lot. Usually before and after class each day, usually. If it is going well, that's just fantastic. I'm excited to get to the Photoshop step because that adds a whole level of possibilities. Not only do you get to find the right photos, size the right photos, but you get to manipulate them. I turned them black and white today. But you also get to collage and montage, which is much more experimental, much more fun. What if I wanted all these photos to be in outer space just to get all wild, trippy rock and roll? I wanted to put the outer space behind everybody. I could do that. I could do that with enough Photoshop skill. So we're going to be doing some of that weird Photoshop as well as practical Photoshop starting tomorrow. I think you're going to love it. I love it. Photoshop's highly addictive. I'm a painter, originally. So, everything for me always comes back to painting. And, painters starve. If any of you want to be a painter, please go like this. But, really, painters are just mostly broke. And, even if you're selling paintings, you got a side gig, you're a teacher, I frankly didn't even like selling paintings. I'm all nervous now because people have shown an interest recently and I'm avoiding answering them. That stinks. I have a good excuse now because I did agree to a show that's next April in Rochester, New York, in a big space. So they can show a lot of work. So now I get to say, oh, there's no work for sale right now. I'm sounding like I'm bragging. The work's odd and eccentric. I wanted to keep it that way. I never really wanted to make it a commodity because that wasn't why I made it. But now since people are interested in my brand of poetry, whatever that may be, I'm feeling greedy now keeping it. So now it's turned on its head now. Now I'm the bad guy, I think, because what's going to do in my house? Piles and piles of artwork. So I gotta get open. I gotta see what's going to happen. I'm shy about it. It's funny. Not shy in the classroom. Not shy as a designer. I don't even think twice. I could talk in the theater, but the artwork has always been the nervous part for me. You know, my own private artwork, because it is private, but not anymore. Like I said, if you're interested, go to Instagram and you can see what people say, whether they like it or whether you like it. Any other questions, comments, anything?
I got one more.
Okay.
Is there a way to, I guess the simplest way to be would be to attach words to a photo. And
you really do have good questions, I gotta tell you. There's more than one way, but I would think my favorite way that I've given the most attention is called the figure tag. Figure tag, and it literally says figure, right? But it has some tags that go with it, one called figure caption, right? So you could start to imagine how it works. It is a number of steps. It belongs to HTML5, which is what you're learning. The last few years has been HTML5. So anyone who hasn't learned anything the last few years doesn't know it. You know, it's like newish, but I love it because it was always a headache to put captions under photos, right? Is that what you mean, like a caption?
yeah, that's what I'm trying to do.
Right. So, you know, you learn quickly. You could go to, it's going to involve CSS and HTML, but the tag you want to start with is called figure. I'd go to W3 Schools and look up figure, as well as figure caption. Try their little demos out, get to know the demos out. And it's excellent. I want to give you a peek at something real fast. So I do use this tag myself. So this photo doesn't have a caption. So let's go inside. Let's see. These didn't really deserve captions because, you know, they're just sort of atmospheric. Here. So this is a video. It's not a photo, but the logic is the same. So here's a caption underneath it, and it goes with the photo. Whatever the photo does, the caption sort of responds. So that involved a bunch of CSS, really, and the HTML. If we get a peek, though, at least at the HTML, I just want to see if I really did it this way. Since I opened my big mouth, I built this a while ago. Oh, no, I didn't need to do that. Hang on a second. Well, then you just search figure. Yeah. So, you know, it's funny because, you know, I was even asked about div, and I'm using a lot of divs, which is just a box. And in my div, I put a video. In my box, I put the figure tag. And, you know, to be honest with you, the figure tag acts like a box too. You know where the term came from? You know, in high school math, if they had like a pie chart in your textbook, they'd say, see figure 5.
Oh, okay.
So that's where this term came from. The idea is that that's what you're doing, right? So the figure tag, inside the figure tag is usually image, IMG, separately. There's your image. And then it's usually followed by fig caption. And then the figure tag closes. See that? Let me just make this bigger. So here's my figure tag. Where is that? I got lost. Line 85 here.
Mm-hmm.
Here it is closing. So it's indented in a sloppy way. It's hard for us to see. But usually it would be followed with IMG. There's your image. And a little ways down is fig caption. So figure, close figure. And then in the middle, image and fig caption. And that whole thing's a unit. I can give it a border. I can give it margins to push stuff away. But the text will stay with the photo. Okay. So I would say on a class of easy to hard, you know, if 0 is easy and 100's hard, I would say this is like 60. You know, doable. Great question, though. And, you know, I just want to say, you know what's on my mind that makes this class hard for me? I like answering everything if I can. I really want to. But I know that I'll burn everyone out, and me mostly, and we really can't let me burn out. This will give you a bad class. But also, they ask for a lot of media, this school. This is an introduction to a lot of media. You know, really, when I first got hired, what they said was, we're teaching web design with a lot of media. That was the original class. So it's like, we're making websites, but we're putting animations on it, and we're putting this on it and that on it. And that was the way, I liked that a lot. It was fun, and it made it all feel like there was one central theme. But it's changed, and now it really is about just different media. So I try to mention how they combine as much as I can. So we will do that with Photoshop. And then after that, we're kind of going to leave the web behind. So to really be honest, like, you're not going to be seeing much of the web like 6, 7 classes from now. It's pretty much going to be past. I mean, there's other great stuff, really. You know, the video and the animation is just amazing. Could get people really good starts, but folks like yourselves who are really enjoying this, you know, I'll mention, you know, by the way, since we made videos, why don't you look up the video tag? And I'm probably going to say W3 schools, look up the video. But by the way, that's a really easy one, just for the record. You know, you figure I'm probably not going to mention again, because it is a little complex. You know what I really should do? I'm just very swamped. I want to start a list of like what you guys would have wanted if there was time. And maybe I could just drop tutorials somewhere, because I've taught other classes where those things I might have already done it. I have records of like the handouts.
Yeah.
You know, for other schools, but you know, no one has to know. I think people have been school hopping lately because of YouTube. I'm gonna watch some BMCC, go watch some FIT. Sick with acronyms. We'll go watch NYU. Anyway, guys, listen, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I think I'm gonna wrap it up.
You got a chat, Professor.
Oh, thank you. I'm so bad at that.
Bye.
Oh, really? Wow, somebody used div already. Somebody figured it out. Bye. See you, Jessica. Solid, that's impressive. You know, just want to say, if any of you do explore the infamous world of div, the div tag, it's a deep quagmire, you know? It's like a swamp of a tag. I love it. But it just means a box. So people do all such crazy stuff with it. And the reason it's crazy is the box has no size, no color of any sort or content unless you do it. So it's very abstract. So if someone asks for a div, you might say, I'm going to put a photo in it, and the photo is 200 pixels, so it keeps the box open. Or I go in and I write code with 200, height 200. But it gets, or if it needs a color, you better give it a color. So the div gets abstract because people write divs all over the place. I've seen students div closing div. And I'm like, what is that? It's a box with nothing in it. You know, why are there divs all over the place? And the answer is always, well, I was trying stuff. Well, yeah, you clean up the kitchen after you tried cooking. You know, it's like no one else could cook if you don't. So you got to clean up after yourself. When you try and code out and things don't work, try to figure out which is which. Put the broken stuff away. So div is a big subject. Look, and you know, I really just want to be as blunt. This officially wraps up tomorrow. Officially, but not exactly, because what's going to happen is tomorrow is HTML, more Photoshop. Pretty sure the next day is just Photoshop. Then it's a couple days of just Photoshop. Then we do the world's smallest review for the midterm, because the midterm is going to use it all, the code and Photoshop. After that, we just diverge completely. We're in a whole other place. You know, I'll be frank, like I love everything in this class. There's one subject I'm like, meh, we'll see. But mostly everything I'm truly in love with. And you could easily go to town on any one of these things and spend the next couple of years doing it. You know, folks, I want to leave you with a thought. I sense a big appetite, especially in those of you who always stick around, you know, after class. I really respect that. Take advantage of being young while you are young, and don't pressure yourself. There's time for you to learn many, many things. With appetites like yours, you surely will. Luckily, you're in a modern world where there's so many ways to learn that didn't exist before once you have an internet connection, which I just think is very, very exciting. You know, for the record, I didn't really intend to do multimedia. And if anyone had told me that I was going to do this, I'd say that sounds very tiring. You know, when I was young, I really wanted to be a cartoonist. And I trained. I wasn't a casual person even then. I read every book there was. And I took classes and I introduced myself to famous people and I went to school for it. But I guess that wasn't my fate, you know, and all it did was make me hungry for other things. Once I had those skills, I'm like, well, what about illustration? How's that different? And then once I did that, I was like, well, what about flat out painting? How's that different? Which I'm still addicted to, that particular topic. Really, to be honest with you, web design came in to pay bills. And then I was like, you know, I do like to write and I do like taking photos. And then before you knew it, web design had more meaning. And yes, it is great for paying bills, you know. And frankly, it gave me excuses to learn other things. After a while, I realized, wait a second here, there's a way to have a very creative life if I don't limit myself too much. You know, for example, cartoonists, they don't make any money. I mean, really, like the famous ones do, but everybody else is just, they're all waiting tables in restaurants and, you know, doing jobs. They all have day jobs, you know, construction workers by day. There's just no money in cartooning really, unless you really get big. Frankly, illustration used to be better, but then photos got really cheap, right? Because everyone could shoot now and more than they used to, and no one has to pay for film or for developing. So it kind of ruined the industry for lots of other art forms that used to, you know, fill the boxes, you know, where the photos are cheap. So if you have a low budget, you're not going to hire an illustrator. You'll hire one of the $5 photographers we were talking about, you know, or something. But I kept getting pushed to learn more. And so it happened without me worrying in advance, like, how hard is this going to be? So your path is going to be similar. Like if let's say you left school and you have 3 or 4 skills you like, and one of them leads to the job, you know, and like, for example, when I was painting mostly, I learned Photoshop because I got tired of starving, and Illustrator and this thing called Quark, which used to be for newspapers and magazines. But someone at a newspaper, eventually anyway, this newspaper figured out that I was better in Photoshop than other people because I was a painter. I didn't expect those things to connect, but they did. And so they just turned me into the Photoshop guy at a given point. I was just the newspaper's image person. I made all the bad images look like good images on a good day anyway, was the idea. I would draw for them on occasion, you know, but mostly I was fixing photos. So I became a Photoshop master. I never planned. When they first hired me, I'd sneak down to phone booths. That's how long ago this was. Cell phones were new. So I'd go down to the phone booth and call friends and say, oh my God, I forgot how to do this thing. They're asking me to do this crazy Photoshop thing. My friend would be like, okay, go to the image menu. I was getting secret phone support. You know, but in a while I got really good at it, and it led to the next thing. Be very frank, I'm at that newspaper when this woman next to me, she goes, you know, you should try out some animation because you like to draw and all that. There's this thing called Flash. And no one had even heard of Flash. And don't repeat this. I should turn off the recording. Those of you out in video land, this is secret. I am turning off the recording if I could figure out how to do that. Where'd it go? Hang on, give me a second here. I want to be a little bit smarter about some things. I'm just going to turn off my, there we go. Oh, that's okay. I turned off that. I'm turning off one more thing.